Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. No special announcements or anything, so let's jump right in and see what's been going on. First up, the developer Apocalypse has just released a homebrew version of the Action Replay for the Sega Master System that works identical to the original and costs $59. So if you've ever looked into what the originals cost, this is a very small percentage of that. I left a eBay affiliate link to the originals in case you're a collector that just wants to have that stuff. But if you just want to use your original Master System cartridges with cheats, this one is definitely the one to buy because it also comes in a cartridge form with a case and manual and everything. So it's going to feel like you're getting something kind of like the original, but you're not paying those crazy prices for it. It'll also work with the other adapters that Apocalypse has made, the MarkMaster and GearMaster, but not the ColecoVision one, obviously, because it's a different console altogether. And if you want to see those demoed, definitely check out the links that I have in the one video I embedded that shows the two of the adapters here. The only thing to note is this will only work with standard Master System cartridges. If you want to use the Japanese ones, you have to use the other adapter along with it. And also, I'm not sure if the GearMaster, the Game Gear on Master System adapters, ever even went on sale, because I believe they're still having the issue of sourcing Game Gear cartridge adapters. So if anybody could help with that, please just jump on the forums and let them know. Because while that wasn't perfect, it was never meant to be. It was meant to be a fun adapter and also a really great demonstration of exactly how all that stuff works. I did another video on that as well if you want to look up Master System on Game Gear and vice versa, if you're interested in seeing that in action and why that's never going to be a perfect solution. But yeah, this one seems awesome. I'm happy to share it. And if you're somebody who has a Master System and wants cheats on original cartridges, this is definitely the best bet. Firebrand X just posted a guide showing you how to rip SNES digital audio using one of those cheap little blue boxes that captures SPDIF. And this video is important for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, digital audio out of an SNES is weird, and you need to get the specific settings right, and you actually have to record in the wrong sample rate and then resample it afterwards. Don't use the resample command. FBX shows you how to do everything in this video. So this is pretty cool. I own one of these USB sound cards and it never works right for me, but I didn't do it the same way that FBX did it. So I think that you might be able to do these captures on basically any machine as long as you follow the guide step by step. Speaking of which, I also asked FBX to just do a screenshot for me of exactly how to do the save settings. And while it's pretty straightforward and just hitting save should have been fine anyway, I just think that there's so many issues with that little blue box. I didn't want to skip anything. So while it's pretty self-explanatory, there's a screenshot right there that just shows you how to save it in FLAC and not have any other issues with it. But there are a few more things that I want to look into. First of all, I've always wanted just a cheap, small SPDIF digital audio capture device. And in fact, I would love just a small dedicated device just for that, but those don't exist. So you need to have one of those little devices that also adds a ton of analog inputs. And as you heard me rant about last week with the speaker video, I don't like adding so many different audio devices to my PC. But I do want to go back and retest that one, and I think there's another one that uses the same chip but might have different drivers that might be a little more reliable that I'd like to test as well. And I think that FBX might even look into doing a video on seeing if it works with OBS, because that's something that we've talked about in the weekly Q&As and something that I would be curious about as well, because if you have any console that has a digital audio output and you have the ability to capture it, why not, right? You might just, lower analog noise floor and just make it a little bit easier to listen to for everybody. So thanks to FBX for doing this. Links to everything are right in the post, and I hope to see at least one follow-up video on this, even if it's like a social media post that says, nope, doesn't work with OBS, with SNES, but maybe with others or something like that. So thanks to Firebrand X for doing the work on this. So I finally finished that IPS versus QD-OLED video that I've been working on forever, and I think it should give you a general sense of what to expect with any very high-end IPS or QD-OLED monitor. No two displays are going to be exactly the same. And if you want either of the ones that I talked about here, then they're both good choices. I'll get back to that in a second. But the goal of this was to really just present you with the information about each panel type so that you'll know what to look out for and how to make your own decision on this. You could obviously pick any of the displays that I've reviewed recently, or you could just buy whichever one you want. And I think that this one was really interesting to me for a couple of reasons. The number one thing that I learned doing this video, by far above everything else, is that if you value your eyes, get a good monitor if you sit in front of your display all day long, which sounds pretty obvious, but I had a really, really nice 4K LG 144 hertz monitor from 2022 that I'd been using, and I put an insane amount of hours on this monitor, and it was great. And I just assumed that since I didn't have any problems with it, it was still good. But what really drove the point that was driven home the most to me was when I was swapping back and forth between these two new displays, and then I pulled the old one back, I realized, wow, the other ones are much better. So I don't know if it's because it's a couple years more forward in display technology, or if I had just put way too many hours on the other monitor, but do your eyes a favor. Invest in a good monitor if you're staring at one all day long. And if you work at a company, try to get them to as well. And try to convince your boss to like do the before and after thing as well, because that's probably switching from the old one to the new one was, a noticeable upgrade, but going back was really what proved the point. So, and if your boss wants to use my affiliate links, by all means, but that's not what I'm pushing for. I really am pushing for your own eyes to be helped as much as mine, because especially when you get old and you have to have like 3 pairs of glasses laying around at all times, depending on what you're looking at, stuff like this starts to make a much, much bigger difference. Now, the summary of it all, if for desktop use, IPS I preferred. However, the QD-OLED was absolutely amazing, and I wouldn't have not liked it for desktop use, but it was just better, and the IPS was just better for that. And on the flip side, it was the same. The IPS did a great job for gaming, but the QD-OLED was better. However, I picked the wrong panel. I chose this Samsung panel simply because I had just done, I think, Asus and MSI, and I was looking at a similar MSI panel and thought, well, I'm already doing another LG video, and I've done so many videos on those. Let me change it up. And it was the wrong move, because that display is not really compatible with retro stuff in 60 hertz. So if you're looking for a QD-OLED to do any high refresh rate stuff, including anything that you put through the RetroTINK 4K, or modern consoles, or really anything from native 1080p on up, you're good to go. But you can't use MiSTer in its lowest latency modes. You can't use OSSC with SNES or any other wonky stuff like that. So the Samsung was a bad choice, and bad choice for this video. I still think it's an excellent choice for somebody that might want it. And the only other thing to mention is that some awesome person in the comment section said that it actually is compatible with retro if you update the firmware and change a setting, but then that jacks the lag on 60 hertz up to the point where it's like, if you're spending $1,000 on a monitor, you don't want over a frame of lag. If you happen to get it on a good deal, or if it's one of those things where you're 99% using it for other stuff, but sometimes just want to put 60 hertz retro, cool. But I still wish I chose a different one. And if anybody wants to drop ship it to me, let me review it, and then I'll ship it to you when I'm done. There's an MSI one that's $1,000 that looks like it has the potential to be the best one for us, but I would never be able to know that unless I tried. But the people drop shipping it to me, and then me either returning it if it stinks or forwarding it on to them, seems to have been working out great. Knock on wood, no issues at all. So if you're on the fence about any of these and you're like, damn, I would have bought that Samsung, but I really want this, let me know. If you're in the US, we could figure this out, and I could just do another review like I did on the second channel. I also have, I showed what you need to do on the second channel's video, and I pinned the post. So don't worry, if you need to use that, you don't have to go hunt it down. Just look for the pinned post in the IPS versus QD-OLED video, and you can get the full Samsung video there, or just go to my Amazon page or whatever. It's all right there. So yeah, this one was really interesting. I definitely need to invest in a lot more and a lot better equipment if I want to keep doing these, and the numbers will dictate that. I mean that respectfully. If I barely get any views on this, like I barely get any views on the OLED shootout video I did, then that means that this isn't the content I need to be doing, and I can't be spending a ton of money on other equipment. But if this is something that people want to see, and you want to see me continue to do modern display reviews that are also retro focused, I got to get another camera, I got to get a rail system and a bunch of other stuff. So please share this video with as many people as you know. If that's something you want to see, click on these affiliate links, and also just reach out. Just let me know in the comments. Hey, yeah, look, I've been looking to buy one of these, or any monitor, really. Anything that's not giant TV size, because you can't really ship those cost effectively. But 32 inches and lower, if you're just like, hey, I didn't really want any of the ones that you reviewed, but I'm interested in this, would you check it out for me? Even if it's a cheap $100 one that, Amazon's got great sales. Absolutely, no problem. We'll work that out. I'll do a shorter 5 to 8 minute video like I do on the second channel of it, but I'll still talk about it here. So yeah, let me know what you think. Hopefully these videos won't flop, and hopefully I really did at least point you in the right direction for this stuff. But I certainly learned a lot and thought it was really worthwhile to do, not just from a retro perspective, but just for using it modern day-to-day use as well. Mike Chi just released his latest RetroTINK adapter, this one being for the Dreamcast. And this is essentially just a VGA cable, but in the short dongle form. So basically, the Dreamcast, when you plug in a VGA cable, it switches to only 480p mode and outputs native 480p for almost the entire library, or the entire library if you're able to have any of those patches that I talked about a while back that completes the full library to 480p. And essentially, this is for people who want a reliable VGA cable, but maybe you want one in different lengths, or maybe you don't want to gamble on the Amazon ones, because every couple of years I'll buy a new one off of Amazon, because usually one of my friends asks me for one. I'm like, oh, just take mine, I'll get another one. And they're always hit or miss. Sometimes you'll get a $12 cable and it's fine. And other times you'll get weird horizontal interference. You get those diagonal wavy lines that are all just signs of poor cable quality. So if you're like, oh, I only want a VGA cable for my Dreamcast, or I want one, but I just need a 3-foot cable at the end to wire it into my setup, or I already have whatever reason, this is an excellent choice. It's only $20. And you're going to get the same quality that you would get out of all of these RetroTINK adapters. And of course, if you do need a VGA cable for it, you could just pick up the other RetroTINK, just standard VGA cable for it as well. So hopefully that's a basic overview of it. People often get confused on what these dongles do, and I did that launch video a while back that hopefully explained it. But essentially, they're just pass-through adapters, and so is this one. It's just VGA. It doesn't have a switch for 480i stuff. It doesn't have a sync combiner in it. It's just a VGA cable. It's just one that happens to be high quality, so you don't have to worry about fumbling around with cheap Amazon solutions. And speaking of Mike Chi, he just released an update for the RetroTINK 4K, both the CE and the Pro, that if you game on a high refresh rate monitor, 120 Hz or higher, you absolutely have to try this. This adds something called variable MPRT blur reduction, which is essentially a form of BFI that takes a 60 Hz signal and breaks up the way the brightness is outputted. So in the example of 60 to 120 Hz, which is what probably most people might have the ability to try, especially with modern TVs mostly running at 120 Hz, what it does is takes the brightness information, and the first frame is significantly brighter. It has all the bright information on it, and the second is all of the dim information. And what that ends up doing is reducing motion blur the same way that standard BFI does, but you retain brightness. And the more steps that you add, the more motion blur is reduced. So in the case of 240 Hertz, you could use this MPRT, variable MPRT BFI, where frame number 1 is all super bright, then medium bright, then dim, and the fourth frame is just off. So a form of just straight up BFI. And that looks almost as sharp as just a still shot. That was incredible to see. That's very close to CRT levels. It does end up with the image being a little bit too bright, a little bit washed out. So I recommend, at least now when it's, in its early form, only using this in conjunction with CRT mask emulation. And then you're essentially getting closer to the CRT phosphor decay that you're seeing. And it looks awesome. And it's way brighter than BFI, even with HDR on. And in fact, I would say do not use HDR with this. And if you want an easy way to test this out, and I know this is going to sound complicated, but roll with me here. Just load up the latest RetroTINK firmware. If you have done the firmware update I talked about last week with the SD card update, you get everything. Go into the profiles and load up Kuro's 20L5 profile, and then set your input, switch the output resolution to 1080p 120 or 240, 180, whatever else you got. And then also make sure to set the scaling to an even integer. 5x for 1080p is definitely what I would set it to. And then turn this on. And what you'll end up with is an incredible CRT mask. And I actually like the way the 1080p look of Kuro's masks look on smaller displays like the 27-inch displays I've been testing recently. And that's it. You have yourself a really close to CRT look and improved motion blur. And let me know what you think. Try it on different displays. If you have a 240 hertz IPS, try it in 180 hertz mode for the reasons that I talked about in that IPS versus QD-OLED video. Shout out to Mark for Blurbusters for teaching me that stuff, and just for being patient and teaching me all this stuff. But yeah, so this is awesome. This is one of those things where I guess if you're only gaming on a 60 hertz display, it doesn't apply to you. And even if you don't really understand what any of this is or means, just try it, see what happens. No BFI is perfect. You're still going to get a little bit of flicker. You're still going to get a difference in the image. So, this one, unlike regular BFI, might be a little bit too bright. Whites aren't going to look perfect, but you have to take it into context of what you're trying to do. And I think the still shot here really is a great demonstration of that, because if you look at the no BFI motion example, that's actually an example of an excellent QD-OLED display and how good 60 hertz motion blur can look these days. That's not a bad example. That's actually a good example. And all of the BFI examples blow that one away. So we're getting there little by little. And, thanks to Mike for continuing to add all of these amazing free updates to both TINKs. This is, in fact, the only BFI option that doesn't work on the CE is the CRT Beam Simulate. And at the moment, I like this one better anyway. So any RetroTINK 4K, give this sucker a try. Please check out the video if you want slow motion shots, comparisons. Basically, just go to the post, get everything you need, and then give this thing a try. Darksoft is trying to make one final batch of the MVS Multi, the Neo Geo MVS Multi-Cart, and I believe he said the same thing a couple of years ago, but a bunch of people are asking for it, so he's trying to make one last batch, but currently haven't had enough orders to actually put the run in. So I wanted to mention it here because while there's other options and while original hardware is very expensive and a lot of people prefer emulation, the fact is that a ton of people just want to use their original hardware, especially people with Neo Geo arcade cabinets. So if the Darksoft one is one that you had preferred, this might be your last chance if it works at all. Now, if you place your pre-orders and there's not enough orders for it to be made, you're just going to get refunded immediately. So you don't have to worry about that. But the price is $660, which is expensive, but everything has gone up in price, so it's not surprising at all. And the only other alternative available now is the Backbit one, which I believe is in stock, and that one's $500. But I didn't really do a shootout of the two. All I did was the speed test on it. Joe from Scarlet Sprites did a full overview on it. So I don't know, did anybody out there do a one-to-one comparison of the Darksoft versus the Backbit and what the advantages and disadvantages are? Both are good, that's for sure. And I definitely did a comparison back in 2019 between this and the Neo SD, which I don't think you can get those at all anymore. And they both performed great. I didn't really have any complaints. Each had their advantages and disadvantages, as they should. They're different products. So yeah, if you're into original Neo Geo hardware and you were looking specifically for the Darksoft one, this is probably going to be your last chance, because if it's that hard to fill a small order this time, then it's probably never going to happen again. So I hope everybody who wants one gets theirs made. I don't like to see products go out of stock forever, especially with original hardware, because new people come into the scene all the time. And if they're just now rediscovering or discovering this stuff, it's kind of frustrating to find out, oh yeah, the the interest waned a little bit, so now you can't get them anymore. So hopefully there'll be enough people signing up for it if this is something people want. So check the links for where to place your pre-order, and I also linked to the forum and everything else if you want more info. Modern Castle now has stock of the Game Boy Advance Consolizer kits called the GBAHD. These kits can be used with either a Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Advance SP and allow you to output 720p or 1080p and use either an SNES controller or a Bluetooth controller. Tito from Macho Nacho Productions did a video on it a while back that's still relevant and shows you everything that you would need to know from installation to how it performs. And as far as performance goes, this is actually the lowest latency Game Boy Advance consolizer ever released. And technically, you could say it's faster than the original, but essentially what that just means is the original screen on the Game Boy Advance adds about a frame of latency, whereas this doesn't. So as long as you're using a display that doesn't add more than a frame total of latency, you're at equal to or less than the original lag of the Game Boy Advance. It's important to note that Consoles for You is still selling both their kits as well as completed units, if that's something you're interested in. And the price difference, I'm assuming, is mostly because of shipping and import costs these days, which I don't need to explain that to anybody listening. So if, wherever you live, I would just check out both stores and see whichever one is most cost effective to get. Or of course, if you want the completed kits, then Consoles for You is the place to get it from. I have links to all of that right here. And just a heads up, Modern Castle is Castlemania's modder-focused companion site, hence the pun on modder. Get it? But if you want anything else from there, they're all in stock at the moment, so you'll be able to just pick it up, which could be helpful these days because trying to import stuff is a pain. So having a US seller for this stuff as well as others is probably a great thing to have. So links to everything are right there in the post. It looks like reviews are starting to come in for the Analogue 3D, which is their FPGA N64 that could output up to 4K. And units have not started shipping to regular people yet. I believe they should have started shipping by the time everybody hears this, but these are early release review units that went out. And of course, it doesn't look like, at least at the time of recording this, you could pre-order or purchase one anyway. So I guess no rush in running out to watch these because you can't get yours either way. I personally haven't had time to watch it yet, but I am really excited to see what it's all about and see if it was worth the wait and all of that. And I will embed reviews into this post as they come in, just from the typical reviewers that you trust that do the deep dives and can understand how the hardware and software works, that can give you a good idea of what to expect. And while I am very lucky enough to have a friend who had theirs drop shipped to me, I will definitely be doing a live stream whenever it arrives. But I am not the person to deep dive in N64. It is one of my least favorite consoles. I know people always hate me for saying that, but hey, we're all entitled to our own opinions, and I'm not crapping on the console. I'm just saying it's one of my personal least favorites for the retro stuff, and I'm not the right choice to do a deep dive review either way. I think the people that I'll be highlighting in this post certainly are. And to be honest, this is normally where I would watch all the reviews, kind of take it in myself a little bit, add my knowledge, and then do a post on it. But to be blunt, I just didn't want to have to deal with all the analog trolls in the comments saying, you forgot about the reviews. So I just figured I would jump on it now and point you all in the right direction and give you a reminder of it. But I'll definitely be doing a live stream when it comes in, and I'll be able to double check anything that anybody found, which is always really helpful. A lot of my fellow reviewers and stuff, we like it when we bounce off of each other and kind of double check each other, because sometimes you learn stuff, new set of eyes, might allow for a different perspective, or you could just confirm everything that you found out anyway. But so let's all watch the reviews and see if there's anything else you want me personally to test on it, and just go from there. Just a quick heads up, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the new Atari 2600 composite and S-Video mod from the Retro channel, and those are back in stock. So I don't want to waste everybody's time and repeat myself again, but it's an easy installation, you get decent quality, and if you don't need RGB, like many of us who might just have a all composite or all S-Video CRT setup, this seems to be the best one to pick up. So I'll leave a link to the post, check out the video from the Retro channel, and if you were waiting on it, here you go. If anybody is looking for a right angle headphone jack adapter, I found one and MD Fourier tested it to make sure that it doesn't change the sound in any way. I got the right angle adapter because I decided to keep the IPS display and wanted it flush plugged in so that you couldn't see it sticking out from the bottom. And this one turned out to be perfect. I didn't get any interference from it. As long as it was plugged in snugly and you didn't leave it dangling or yank on it, there was no scratchiness or popping or anything like that. And left and right audio were oriented properly, which is a thing that happens sometimes. But I also have something to admit to all of you, and my favorite person in the world to make fun of is me, so here we go again. But I thought I was so freaking clever the other week, showing you how to mount your soundbar hidden behind the display. And I did it on this one too. It totally works on the IPS display, and it's nice and clean, and especially when you have this adapter in, you don't even know it's there, and I like it better on the stand. Like I said last week, it just makes it look like I have a center channel speaker in my setup. And of course, speakers are going to sound better aiming directly at you. So while, yes, I still think that if you want a clean hidden look, especially if you have it mounted on an arm instead of on the stand, taping that PC soundbar behind the display is absolutely a cool thing to do. And it's easy, and I still loved it for that. But for my setup, since I'm just leaving it on the stand, I like it like that. So yeah, I guess sometimes I'm not as clever as I thought, but I just wanted to make fun of myself because I liked them in both positions, but it just looks awesome. It looks like I have a mini surround setup here, but I'm really just using whichever speakers I want. And I still stand by the whole not wanting to use my expensive studio monitors, but I had forgotten about something that I always talk about, whether it's home theater or whatever else, and that if you only use good speakers every day, you don't appreciate them as much. So hearing these not great compared to expensive studio monitor soundbar that I have here for most of the day, but only flipping on the studio monitors when I'm recording, mixing, or just want to listen to music or something like that, makes me appreciate them a lot more than I have been the past months or year or whatever else. So still standing by the soundbar recommendation, but mount it whatever place works for you. And if you want a flush mount adapter, this is definitely the one to buy. Another quick review, I wanted a fast flash drive so that I could just have a small portable storage to bounce around between stuff, but that runs at as fast as I could possibly get. And I found one that absolutely runs at the rated speeds of 10 gigabit per second. It is small. It has both USB-C and USB-A, although the USB-C side kind of gets in the way of stuff sometimes, but it's nice to have it there without an adapter in case I need it. Links are right there if you want something fast, but also just a fun little tidbit. This is not a flash drive. It is a flash drive shaped SSD. And that's something that people had mentioned to me before when I talked about different drives that I had used. And basically, if you can't eject it in Windows the normal way, that's a sign that it's actually an SSD, which in most cases means nothing. It means no difference. It just, you have to eject it through the taskbar rather than through the standard Windows Explorer. And some Flash utilities won't work with it. I used Rufus as an example. You could actually open up advanced settings in that, but that's a good thing. That way you don't accidentally use SD flash software or, USB flash software and overwrite one of your hard drives. But yeah, for the most part, it just works like a flash drive, but it is actually an SSD. So if you're interested in any of that, check out the very short video, or if you just want a fast, small, portable thing, definitely try this one out. And the last super quick review, if you're looking to go from full-size HDMI to micro HDMI, I found a short little adapter that seemed to work perfect for me. It worked flawlessly in my camera. I could wiggle the camera around and it doesn't seem to do anything. It wasn't as snug in a Raspberry Pi, but thanks to an awesome commenter, they confirmed that it was the same for them as well. And I always kind of had issues with cables that weren't as stable in my Pi 4, so I always assumed it was their micro HDMI jacks, but it handled full 4K 60, and that's basically it. And I even said at the end of the review, like, it's weird. I'm the guy that deep dive tests a 3.5 millimeter headphone adapter with MD Fourier and spent 2 hours making sure I got the analysis right, but I got nothing else to say. You plugged it in and it worked. Didn't have any blips or speckles or anything. So please let me know if I should have tested something else with this adapter. But I mean, I really do think this is one of these it works or it doesn't type of scenarios. So let me know what you think. But hey, at least while they're a dime a dozen, at least you know you have a reliable one. And like shout out to Ryan Mercer. He said that he had one of these too, but probably lost it. And the reason I bought one of these is because I know I have one sitting in one of these boxes here. But when I went to find it, I couldn't, and I had to buy another one. And that's how I discovered these. But I think we're all kind of like that. We probably have one of these in some box somewhere, but the moment you need it, you're not going to find it. So if that's you, grab these instead because it definitely worked as advertised. Well, that's it for this week, but before I go, I just want to thank awesome people in the comments. Every couple of months, I'll just be reminded that I'm so unbelievably lucky to have awesome people chiming in to help out. And it's everything from people who just confirm these weird little reviews I've been doing, like, oh, I bought one too, I also thought it was good. That's super helpful information for me. I really appreciate it. There's also people who take the time to share good pro info that they don't need to take the time to do that, but it helps me learn a lot and helps me point in the right direction, or even the tip about the Samsung monitor. Thank you. Seriously. Honestly, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I try to always take things that people teach me and apply it, test it and double check it, of course, but then apply it into all of the other stuff that I do. So when I say every week, thanks to everybody who watches, listens, and plays nicely in the comments, I mean all of those things genuinely. So thank you all so much. And of course, thank you to all of the monthly subscribers, because it is you who's really keeping all of this stuff going. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you next week. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.